the night when the veil between worlds grows thin. October 31st, Halloween, a date marked by laughter, costumes, and candy. But beneath the celebration lies something darker, something that has haunted humanity for centuries. Before we descend into the shadows, join us on this journey into the unknown. Subscribe and share your own Halloween encounters in the comments below, because what you're about to hear may change how you see this night forever. The origins of fear. Every year, millions celebrate Halloween without questioning why. Why this specific date? Why the masks? Why do we welcome darkness into our homes? The ancient Celts called it Samhain, the night when the boundary between the living and the dead dissolved. They believed that on October 31st, spirits walked freely among us. Not all of them friendly. They lit bonfires to ward off evil. They wore costumes to confuse malevolent entities. They left food offerings to appease the dead. But traditions born from fear don't survive 2,000 years without reason. The disappearance, October 31st, 1974. Long Island, New York, a neighborhood preparing for trick-or-treat. Children excited, parents watchful, everything normal. Until it wasn't. 11-year-old Ronald Clark O'Brien took his son Timothy and daughter Elizabeth out for Halloween, along with a family friend and her 2 children. The night was clear, the streets filled with laughter. Timothy ate his candy. Within an hour, he complained of stomach pain. Then came the convulsions. His father rushed him to the hospital. By midnight, Timothy was dead. The candy was poisoned. Cyanide, enough to kill 10 adults. The investigation revealed something far more sinister than a random act of evil. Timothy's father had taken out life insurance policies on both his children just weeks before Halloween. The poisoned candy wasn't random. It was murder disguised as a Halloween tragedy. Ronald O'Brien became known as the Candyman Killer. He was executed in 1984. But Timothy's death sparked something else, a nationwide panic. Parents across America suddenly saw Halloween as a hunting ground for predators. The question remains, how many other Halloween tragedies have been hidden in plain sight? The House on Elm Street, October 31st, 1981. A different kind of horror unfolded in a quiet suburb of Detroit. The Wilson family had just moved into their dream home, a Victorian house built in 1893. Previous owners had warned them about strange occurrences, doors opening, footsteps in empty rooms, shadows that moved independently. The Wilsons dismissed it as old house noises. Halloween night, they decided to host a party. Friends arrived in costume, music played, everything seemed festive. Until the temperature dropped, witnesses reported seeing their breath indoors. The lights flickered, then went out completely. In the darkness they heard it, a child's laughter coming from the attic. John Wilson grabbed a flashlight and went upstairs. His wife pleaded with him to wait for the power to return. He didn't listen. He climbed the stairs, each step creaking under his weight. The laughter grew louder, more distinct, a little girl's voice. When he opened the attic door, the laughter stopped. He found her in the corner, a figure in a white dress, long dark hair covering her face. She stood perfectly still. John called out, asked if she was lost, if she needed help. The figure turned, but there was no face, just darkness where features should have been. John ran, stumbled down the stairs. When he returned with the others, the attic was empty. Later, they discovered the history. In 1923, a 9-year-old girl named Sarah had lived in that house. On Halloween night, she'd been playing in the attic. A candle tipped over. The attic caught fire. Sarah died from smoke inhalation before anyone could reach her. The Wilsons moved out 3 weeks later. They never celebrated Halloween again. The Vanishing, Scotland, October 31st, 1996. The village of Glencoe, nestled in the Highlands, a place already steeped in dark history. 15-year-old Margaret Ross attended a Halloween bonfire with friends. The celebration followed ancient Samhain traditions: fire, music, dancing. At 11:45, witnesses saw Margaret walk toward the old stone circle at the edge of the village. Ancient standing stones erected thousands of years ago for purposes lost to time. She was alone. At midnight, her friends realized she hadn't returned. They searched the stone circle, called her name, nothing. They found her shoes, placed neatly at the base of the largest stone, her jacket folded beside them. But Margaret was gone. Police searched for weeks. Helicopters, dogs, volunteers combed every inch of the Highlands. No trace, no body, no clues. What makes this case extraordinary isn't just her disappearance, it's what happened next. Exactly 1 year later, October 31st, 1997. Another bonfire, another celebration. At midnight, witnesses reported seeing a figure standing among the stones, long red hair, white dress. Margaret's distinctive appearance. People ran toward the stones. But as they approached, the figure vanished. This happened again in 1998 and 1999 and every Halloween since. Margaret Ross has never been found. But every October 31st at exactly midnight, people claim to see her standing among those ancient stones, waiting, watching, unable to return. The Hospital Wing, Massachusetts, October 31st, 2003, the abandoned Danvers State Hospital, once known as the Danvers Lunatic Asylum. A group of urban explorers decided to investigate on Halloween night. They'd heard the stories, lobotomies performed in the basement, patients left to die in locked wards, screams that never stopped. They entered through a broken window. 5 friends with flashlights and cameras. They wanted proof of the paranormal. They got more than they bargained for. In Ward C, they found patient rooms still furnished, beds with restraints. Medicine bottles dated from the 1950s, everything covered in decades of dust. Then they heard the music, a music box, playing somewhere deeper in the ward. The melody drifted through empty corridors, childlike, haunting. They followed the sound to a room at the end of the hallway. The door was closed. The music emanated from within. One of them pushed the door open. The music box sat on a rusted bed frame, still playing, still turning. But that's not what made them run. On the walls, hundreds of scratches, names carved into plaster, dates, all from October 31st across different years. 1897, 1921, 1963, and fresh scratches, still bleeding plaster dust, dated that very night, October 31st, 2003. They fled. 2 of them have never spoken about what they saw. One had a complete psychological breakdown. The footage they captured showed the music box, the scratches, and in the last frame before the camera was dropped, a shadow standing in the doorway. A shadow with no source. Danvers State Hospital was demolished in 2007, but construction workers reported strange occurrences, tools moving, voices in empty buildings. Work accidents clustered around October 31st. The luxury apartments built on that ground have abnormally high turnover rates. Tenants complain of nightmares, voices, the smell of antiseptic in the middle of the night. Some locations remember, some refuse to let go. The broadcast October 31st, 2008, a radio station in Portland, Oregon, late night shift. The DJ, Marcus Webb, hosted a call-in show about Halloween experiences. At 11:37, a call came through. A woman's voice. She sounded young, frightened. She said her name was Emma. She'd been driving home from a Halloween party. Her car broke down on a rural road. No cell service. She'd walked to a farmhouse seeking help. The family inside invited her to wait while they called for assistance. They were having their own Halloween celebration. Carved pumpkins, children in costumes. But Emma noticed something wrong. The children's costumes looked old, handmade. The pumpkins were carved with straight razors, not modern tools. The house had no electricity, only candles. The family spoke in strange dialects, used phrases from another era. When Emma asked to use their phone, they looked at her confused. What phone? That's when she saw the newspaper on their table. October 31st, 1952. Marcus asked Emma where she was. She gave an address. He promised to send help. The call ended. Marcus contacted police, gave them the location. Officers found the property, an abandoned farmhouse that had burned down in 1953. The family had died in the fire. Halloween night, 1952. They found Emma's car, broken down on the road, but Emma was gone. She has never been found. The call was recorded. You can still hear it if you search deep enough. Her voice, the fear, the confusion. And in the background, if you listen carefully, you can hear children laughing and a voice saying, "Stay with us. Join our celebration." The pattern. These aren't isolated incidents. They're pieces of a larger pattern. Every year on October 31st, disappearances spike. Unexplained deaths increase. Emergency services report unusual calls. People claiming to see things that shouldn't exist. Skeptics call it coincidence. Confirmation bias. People looking for patterns in randomness. But the data doesn't lie. Statistical analysis shows a measurable increase in missing persons reports on Halloween night, higher than any other night of the year, including Friday the 13th, including full moons. Why? Some researchers point to the obvious. Alcohol consumption, large gatherings, reduced visibility with costumes and masks. Others suggest something deeper. They reference quantum physics, the many worlds interpretation. The idea that reality isn't singular but multiple, parallel universes existing simultaneously. What if October 31st isn't just folklore? What if there's a reason ancient cultures feared this date? A measurable phenomenon we don't fully understand. What if, for one night each year, the barriers between realities actually do weaken? The Cemetery, New Orleans, October 31st, 2012. St. Louis Cemetery number 1, the oldest cemetery in New Orleans, home to above-ground tombs and Voodoo Queen Marie Laveau's grave. A tour group visited on Halloween night. 15 people, professional guide, everything official. At exactly midnight, as they stood near Marie Laveau's tomb, every camera stopped working. Every phone died simultaneously. The temperature dropped 30 degrees in seconds. The guide, a man with 20 years' experience, later testified that he saw the dead standing among the tombs. Not decomposed, not skeletal, but solid, real, dressed in period clothing from different eras. They stood silently, watching the living, not threatening, just observing. The moment passed, lasted maybe 10 seconds. Phones and cameras returned to function. But when people checked their photos, they found something impossible. In every photograph taken that night, there were additional people in the background. People who hadn't been in the tour group, people in Victorian dresses, Civil War uniforms, clothing from the 1800s. One photograph showed a woman standing directly behind a tourist, her hand resting on his shoulder. He felt nothing at the time, but in the photo you can see her clearly. And you can see she's translucent. The tour company stopped running midnight Halloween tours after that night. They'll never publicly explain why. The children's game. There's a game, passed down through generations, played on Halloween night. Different names in different cultures, but the same basic rules. At midnight, stand in front of a mirror, light a single candle, say a specific phrase 3 times. Different versions invoke different entities. Bloody Mary, La Llorona, the Midnight Man. Psychologists dismiss it as mass hysteria, the power of suggestion, teenagers scaring themselves in the dark. But documented cases suggest otherwise. October 31st, 2015. 3 teenage girls in suburban Chicago decided to play. They filmed it for social media. The video still exists in fragments across the internet. You can watch them light the candle, see them stand before the mirror, hear them say the words. On the 3rd repetition, the candle goes out, not gradually, instantly, as if snuffed by an invisible hand. In the darkness, you hear one of the girls scream. The camera drops. When someone finally picks it up and turns on the lights, one girl is in the corner, catatonic, eyes wide, unresponsive. The other 2 are crying, saying they saw something in the mirror, something that shouldn't exist. The catatonic girl recovered after 3 days in the hospital, but she refuses to speak about what happened. She's never celebrated Halloween again. She's never looked in a mirror after dark. The video was removed multiple times from various platforms, but copies survive. Watch it yourself. Decide what you see in those final frames before the lights go out. The forest Aokigara, Japan's suicide forest. October 31st, 2017. This forest already has a dark reputation, a place where people go to disappear, to end their lives. Hundreds of bodies recovered every year, but Halloween night 2017 was different. A research team studying the forest's ecosystem set up equipment for overnight monitoring. Motion sensor cameras, audio recording devices, infrared sensors. They left at dusk, returned at dawn. The footage they recovered should have shown wildlife, trees swaying, nothing unusual. Instead, the cameras captured something inexplicable. At 11:53 p.m., every motion sensor triggered simultaneously, across a 2-mile radius, as if something massive moved through the entire forest at once. The infrared cameras showed heat signatures, human-shaped, dozens of them, moving between trees but not walking, gliding, floating. The audio recorded voices whispering in Japanese, the same phrase repeated over and over. Come with us. Come home. At 12:14 a.m., everything stopped. The forest returned to silence. The heat signatures vanished. The research team published their findings in a limited circulation journal. Mainstream science ignored it, but paranormal investigators study those recordings obsessively. because the heat signatures matched missing persons reports. People who disappeared in that forest years earlier, their exact heights, their body types, as if they'd returned on Halloween night to call others into the darkness, the explanation that never comes. Scientists search for rational explanations, magnetic anomalies, seasonal atmospheric conditions, mass delusion driven by cultural expectation. But none of these theories account for the physical evidence. The photographs, the recordings, the witnesses who have no reason to lie. Historians point to the Celtic origins. Samhain, the belief that October 31st marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter, the dark half of the year. Ancient peoples believed this transition created a crack in reality, a moment when natural laws weakened, when impossible things became possible. Modern paranormal researchers have developed theories. They reference quantum mechanics, the observer effect, the idea that consciousness itself might influence physical reality. What if belief has power? What if millions of people across centuries focusing on one specific night actually created something real? What if we've been conditioning reality itself to behave differently on October 31st? The recent case. October 31st, 2023. The most recent documented case, still being investigated. A Halloween party in Austin, Texas. 30 guests, good friends, normal celebration. At midnight, they decided to take a group photo. Everyone gathered on the back deck, phones out, smiling. Every phone captured the same image. 30 people, standing together. Normal, except for one detail. In every single photograph, there was a 31st person, standing at the back of the group, slightly out of focus, wearing no costume, just staring at the camera. No one saw this person during the party. No one remembers them being present. But there they are, in every photo, undeniably real. Forensic analysis shows no digital manipulation. The figure has correct lighting, proper perspective. Casts a shadow. Appears to be genuinely present when the photos were taken. But security cameras covering the same deck show only 30 people. The 31st figure doesn't appear in video footage, only in still photographs. The party guests have shared their story anonymously, too afraid of ridicule to reveal their identities, but the photos circulate, enhanced, analyzed, debated. Some claim the 31st figure appears in other Halloween photos from other years. Other parties, always standing at the back, always slightly out of focus, always watching. The true nature. Perhaps Halloween isn't what we think it is. Perhaps the celebration, the costumes, the candy, it's all a distraction. A way to avoid confronting something fundamental about this particular night. Perhaps the ancient Celts understood something we've forgotten. That certain dates carry weight. That time itself isn't uniform. That some moments in the calendar year are genuinely different. Modern physics tells us time isn't linear. That past, present, and future exist simultaneously. That cause and effect might not work the way we assume. What if October 31st is a point where these timelines intersect? Where past tragedies bleed through? Where the dead can glimpse the living? Where reality itself becomes fluid? Every culture has noticed this. Every civilization has marked this date with fear and ritual. The names change. Samhain, Day of the Dead, All Saints' Eve. But the recognition remains constant. October 31st is different. The warning, If you celebrate Halloween this year, understand what you're participating in. It's not just a holiday, it's not just tradition. You're acknowledging something older than Christianity, older than recorded history. A night when boundaries dissolve. The costumes originally served a purpose: to confuse malevolent spirits, to make the living indistinguishable from the dead. The jack-o'-lanterns weren't decorations, they were wards. Protection, light to keep darkness at bay. The custom of leaving food offerings, a bargain, an attempt to appease whatever walks on this night. We've forgotten the original meanings. Transformed sacred ritual into commercial celebration, replaced genuine fear with artificial thrills. But the night remembers. The date remembers. The thin places where worlds touch, they remember. The disappeared. How many people have vanished on Halloween night, not just officially missing, but completely erased? People whose names appear in no records, whose families forgot they existed. There are theories, whispered in certain circles, that some disappearances aren't kidnappings or murders. They're transitions, people who've crossed over completely, entered whatever exists on the other side of that veil. Sometimes they come back changed, sometimes they don't come back at all, and sometimes on subsequent Halloween nights they're seen standing in crowds, at parties, in photographs, present but not present, here but not here, stuck between worlds on the one night when that's possible. October 31st, every year this date arrives again. Every year people celebrate without understanding. They laugh, they play, they pretend fear for entertainment. And every year somewhere someone experiences something that shatters their understanding of reality. Something that proves the old stories weren't just stories. The disappearances continue. The sightings multiply, the photographs accumulate, the recordings preserve what shouldn't exist. We can dismiss individual cases, we can explain away specific incidents. But the pattern remains. Undeniable, persistent, growing. Halloween isn't becoming safer, it's becoming more dangerous, not because of human threats, but because we've forgotten to respect what this night truly represents. The final question. This October 31st, when you turn off the porch light, when you blow out the jack-o'-lantern, when you go to sleep, what will you do if you hear footsteps in your hallway? What will you do if your mirror shows something that isn't there? What will you do if you wake to find someone standing at the foot of your bed? Someone wearing no costume, someone who shouldn't be in your locked house, someone who looks almost human but not quite. Will you scream? Will you run? Will you close your eyes and pray it's just a dream? Or will you recognize the truth, that on October 31st the rules change, that protection isn't guaranteed, that the dead don't always stay buried, that some nights belong to forces beyond our control or understanding? The end is the beginning. The stories I've shared tonight are documented, real, investigated, but they're only a fraction of what happens every Halloween across the world. How many incidents go unreported? How many people experience something unexplainable but never tell anyone? How many families hide their tragedies rather than face ridicule? The truth accumulates in shadows, in whispered conversations, in eyes that have seen too much, and every Halloween the truth grows darker. As the veil grows thin once more, remember, the spirits you invite may not be the spirits you expect. The door you open may not be the door you can close. And the night you celebrate may be celebrating something far older than you. Until the shadows call again, stay vigilant, trust your instincts, and never ever ignore the warnings written in blood and memory across centuries. Some nights, darkness isn't just the absence of light, it's the presence of something else. Sweet dreams.